Don't quit your job for a bigger paycheck only. Chasing money is completely empty. The reality is you have to really identify if you're leaving for something or if you're leaving from something. Let's dive into that a little bit. What are you leaving for? What does that mean? When you have a job and you're looking for something else, a new career, a transition, a switch, there can be big reasons that you leave for something, meaning that you want to have a completely different change in your life. Maybe you want to live somewhere different. I mean, there's big things that can happen, but what is it that you would be leaving for? What is the promised land of careers or life that you see? Or you could be leaving from something. You just don't like where you're at. You don't think you're being valued enough. You think it's better on the other side. You think the grass is greener, but you don't really know what you're going to. This is a conversation I have all too often in this office, sitting right across from people that are struggling with where they are now and where they want to be. But the gap between fixing that in their lives can be small or it can be large. It's usually small when they're leaving for something. It's an easy answer. If you've always wanted to do something and now's the time to do it, it's an easy answer. Pursue your dreams, pursue your goals, take a chance, take a risk. But if you're leaving from something, which is what most people actually are doing, they're a little bit challenged there because we have to identify what it really looks like. I'm going to use a great example, one that I understand quite well, in that I have a lot of teachers in my life. My wife is a teacher, my sister's a teacher, so many of their friends are teachers. Sometimes based on the dialogue that goes through my house on a daily basis, I think I'm a teacher. And in some ways I am. But here's the point. So many teachers have had it hard in the last couple of years. And it's not just the last couple of years, but it's really come to the surface in the last couple of years. Through all the teaching with masks and no masks, in school, out of school, dual teaching from one spot and having to teach a computer at the same time. Like, it's unbearable. Listening to my wife explain to me that she was teaching phonics with a mask on and a face shield at one point in time is ridiculous, but it's what teachers have been dealing with. So, lots of teachers in the last couple of years, and again, not just the last couple of years, all through the last decade or so, have really been contemplating career changes. I don't think there has been a teacher that we have talked to in this office that hasn't said, man, there are so many things I love about my job, but I don't like these things. And this is a perfect example of for and from. Leaving for something would be, I went into teaching and now I'm leveraging what I've learned to elevate myself to a whole new career path that I've always dreamed of doing. I found a love for teaching high school students, but I want to go coach at a different level. Or maybe I want to teach college kids now, or, whatever it may be. Maybe there was always a dream to be in real estate. I mean, I don't know what the dream is, but when you're leaving for something, it's very easy. Then there's what I find so many teachers actually describe. What they describe is a love for their job, a love for the kids, a deep love for the impact they make every single day. What they don't love is the system they're in, the ability of nothing to change. I mean, every single problem that's presented is always met with the same result. Nothing changes. It's the same story every single year. It's the system that's the most frustrating. And so a lot of teachers say, hey, I want to leave for this reason, but it's really, I want to leave this system. I want to leave this world. And here's some of the things that we really want you to think about in this example. A teacher has a really special package when it comes to work. So number one, there's a lot of days off that go with being a teacher. On average, the teachers are working a significantly less number of days, albeit heavier workload during those days. Nobody's criticizing that part, but they definitely have extra time in the summers if they're not in the admin. I have admin friends who don't get the same amount of time off. So for you, I know your pain. But a lot of people have the summers off. It works well with the kids' schedules. There's all these different benefits. When you leave and you go to a new career, the first thing you lose is that freedom. The freedom of summer is very rarely something another career path offers. A career path does not usually include starting a new career path and then having 3, 4, 6, 12 weeks off. It also doesn't have consistent pay when you're not working during those times. These are all pretty important things. There's pensions to think about. You know, retiring at 20 years versus 30 years is huge. It's a significant difference. Being 50 years old and getting a pension from that day on versus being 40 years old and waiting until you're 65 to get a reduced pension is really something you have to think about. Like, these are challenges and ones that are not taken easy. And so many teachers that have chosen to follow another path for something and have found great success in their dreams and their goals. I love it. One of our partners and advisors, Andrew Gregory, was a former teacher, and I'm very glad that today he chose this world many years ago to be a part of our business. And these are the types of things that I see for reasons. But the from, you have to identify what you have. So that pension, the freedom, you also have to look at what it takes to make the same amount of money. And a lot of times the benefits are often forgotten. So all those benefits that you get as a part of being in a governmental system are often underappreciated and undervalued. Much like the people feel like, those benefits also probably feel like that as well, because they don't exist all the time in the free market and out there in the private sectors. It's not the same. It's not always not the same, but it's just something else to think about. So when you leave, we've had these conversations where, let's say teachers making $65,000 a year, but the actual benefits equal much, much more. And the job change is going to give them 2 weeks vacation versus what they have now, no pension. That means they have to put away in their 401k. The benefits are 50% less. And when you factor it in, you start to evaluate, are we leaving from something or for something, and what is the value there? Here's another thing that has nothing to do with teaching, but it has to do with culture. You know, culture's huge. You could have the best paying job in the world, but if the culture is sick and bad, it's time to move on. And culture is something that sometimes you have to leave from. If it's a bad culture, then it makes sense occasionally to just find a new culture with a new career. In the education world, it might just be changing schools, going from a different level, from elementary education to high school education, whatever it may be. But in the private sector, a lot of times it's evaluating the culture that you're in and whether or not it's something that can get better or not. It goes both ways though. Sometimes you're not making what you think you could be making somewhere else, and you feel like you're undervalued, but the culture is amazing. What are you sacrificing? Are you sacrificing for the benefit of culture on the negative side or on the positive side? What is your career like right now? And do you love getting up every day and going to work? Because if you do, you're probably not in the majority. And if your culture's that great, then you want to definitely make sure you're considering that as a benefit. Might be a ghost benefit, but it's a big benefit. Another thing that I think is really, really important when you're evaluating your job changes is the value. All right, we're gonna look at the value of you, and we're gonna look at the value of the dollar, okay? The value of you is really important. You have to know what you're valued at, and you have to be truthful to yourself. Don't just say because John Smith earns this amount and he does exactly what I do in your brain that you deserve what John Smith earns. You don't really know if it's apples to apples. So many times I hear this in our conversations with clients, with team members, with everybody, and you really have to evaluate what John Smith is doing, what the company's doing. Is there a different package? Are there ownership or equity involved? You know, what kind of benefits or bonuses are incurred? What kind of risk does John Smith take? Is it a newer company? Is it an older company? How is it established or non-established? Like, all these parts about changing jobs can be valuable. That's the value of John or the value of you. You have to know what that actually is. Now look, on the other side, I've had lots of conversations and done a couple videos on this. You have to know your value. And if you know your value and you bring that to the team you work for now because you have a great culture, and they agree, then they will absolutely probably bring your value up to a level that may not have made you had to make a change at all. Now, in the education world, that doesn't exist. We all know that world. Since we talked about it in the beginning, I'll bring all the teachers and educators back into the conversation because we know that you get brought in at a certain pay, and then it very, very, very slowly increases. And the worst part of education is the fact that the new teachers today earn like within 5,000 to 7,000 of what you earn after 20 years in the industry. That is absolutely ridiculous. And that's not going to be made up. But you do have to evaluate all the other benefits that go with it. And that other teacher that just started $5,000 less than you is going to take 20 years to get that $5,000 to $7,000 up, because there'll be a million excuses why they can't raise the pay. These are all the things that exist. But in the private sector, knowing your value really does make a difference. You should always share it though with your current employer if you love where you're at. Don't ever assume they know. Don't ever assume they actually are fully aware of your value, because sometimes they're just not sure that you're as great as you are. Maybe you're doing things they don't even know about. And it's something that knowing your value can really help elevate that decision of whether or not it's the right time to move or the wrong time. The next is money. Money is something that's how we started this video. It's what's always on the brain, but money is not more valuable than time. So you really have to evaluate what that looks like. Are you making more money? Yes or no? What is that money going to do for you? What's the value of your time? Do you go to work every day and you're home by 4:30 and you have a great afternoon? And I had friends that played soccer with me, and I would speed home, barely make it to grab my stuff. I would come in hot at a 6:30 game. I would not be ready even psychologically to play. I sacrificed a lot early in my career to work a lot of extra hours, but I had very, very small amounts of time, and it was really difficult to fit some of those things in. But when I did, I was rushing. I had other buddies who were there an hour early watching the game before. They were stretching. They felt good. They had these careers where they were done at a certain time, and they prioritized that as what was really, really important to them. The value of that time, having personal time, was more valuable than making more money. I'm not saying one's right or wrong, but we have to identify that for ourselves. And if you create a value only attached to money and you're chasing money without any real value of what it's going to do for you, or an evaluation, I'll go back to the teachers again, evaluating what that total dollar amount is. If $75,000 a year or $150,000 a year is on the page, what does it include? How many days off? How much are the benefits? What is the culture like? All these things are things we're trying to bring into the equation here. When you're talking about switching careers or making a change, these are all things that are important. So understanding your value and the value of a dollar and what that really means. Here's the next thing, personality. Understand your personality. Now, this is self-awareness, folks, and we all, as we get older, get better and better at this. If you tend to be more introverted and you tend to prefer the same thing every day, you prefer the crowd of people that you know, not a crowd of people that you don't. Stepping outside of that box can be very, very stressful, very difficult. Doesn't mean it's not the right thing, but it does mean that it's something you need to consider. Now, if you're extroverted, sometimes you have to be very aware that you're not just looking for the next shiny object. It can't always be greener. The grass isn't always greener. I think that when you look at careers and you look at changes, so many things go into this. I can tell you just from a personal experience, in 2016, I left a company that I had been with for 15 years and loved. Loved everything about the company, loved the training, loved the people, loved all the positives that they gave me. But I was ready for a new chapter. I was ready to run our own company, to build something bigger than ourselves. It was so much more about leaving for something than from something that I was so confident that it's really paid off big. And I'm very, very grateful that I took the time to do the very things I'm thinking about and talking about with you today. I looked at my personality. Believe it or not, when I went through that change, it was very transformational and at times very difficult. Changing from something that I love into something that was going to be extremely hard every single day for the first couple years, especially getting it off the ground, was a challenge. Added different levels of stress. Lifestyle changes happened. All those types of things that were a part of it, we really took the time to evaluate. And so let me just recap a couple of things we've talked about and round this video back out so we can actually come up with a conclusion of how you execute upon this. Here's what we're going to say. Number one, don't leave for the wrong reasons. Leave for the right reasons. Don't leave from something when you haven't identified what it's for. Number two, evaluate the whole situation that you're in. When you think about being a teacher, if every day you get up and you know you make a difference, and you love every aspect of your job except the system, evaluate what that weight is. Write it down. Really pray, really meditate, really identify what you're moving for or from, and then evaluate the whole package. Financially, what's the whole package look like? Because you gotta identify those key components. Then look at the value, okay? The value of the dollar and the value of you as a human, as a worker. What are you bringing to the table and how are you being rewarded? Do you feel like you're valued enough? If not, the first conversation is with yourself. The second is with your employer. Who are you with now? Do you feel comfortable enough going to them and having a conversation and saying, hey, I really feel like I'm doing more and I could be more and I want to be more for this company? One of the best bits of advice people have given me, and one that I continue to give anyone that's ever worked for us, is if you want something more, do it first. Show everybody what you've got in you. Don't ask for it and tell people what you're willing to do. Go start doing it and watch how you're rewarded. Such a big difference when you talk about value. If you go through your life constantly saying you're undervalued, guess what? You're right. But you're the one who really has to soul search and self-evaluate what that means. Finding happiness, going to the next part of value, is not just in the dollar. It's not just in the money. It's not just in a number of saying I make 6 figures or I make $1 million a year. Like, what does that mean? Do you make $1 million a year but you have no time to spend with your children or your family? Do you have no time to vacation? Do you make $50,000 a year but you spend summers doing the things you love? Fishing, swimming, playing with the kids, going on vacations. Like, what is it that's most important? Really evaluate it and then pay special attention to your personality. Don't get so caught up in the money and in the grass is greener that you forget how you're made. What is it going to do to you? How is it going to make you either suffer or celebrate? Are you going to feel really, really good when you make this adjustment? I know that I went through all these steps when I made my changes. I know that it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life. And I don't think in any way that I left from something. I more so left for something. And when you look at what we're building and what our company has become and what all the people surrounding us have really helped us have this better together mentality, it really just affirms all the things from the pre-work that I did, from the things that I needed to know ahead of time to make the right decision. These are the things I really encourage you to do. So if you're a teacher who loves what you do and you love 80% of your day, really evaluate what that extra 20% is worth to you. Sometimes it really can be worth a change, but sometimes it's not worth the heartache and the headache, and what you're losing might be more than you think you are. So these are great questions. I'd love to hear your feedback. I feel like this is a video that could really create some great dialogue and we could learn from each other, because what have you left from? What have you left for? What decisions have you found to be the most successful in career changes? What advice has someone given you that you should share in the comments below? Because that type of stuff can really make a difference in someone's life when they're going through a major transition in career or change, that we all can use great advice when we're going through. So thanks for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to like and share this. Do you know someone who's struggling with this decision? Share this video. This is the very video that might make them think through some of these processes.